cuckoo, I'm cuckoo, I'm cuckoo, I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. I told y'all I am cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. Guess what? My God woke me up this morning and said, Rise. I have something for you to do, Edwina. And so I must first give him the acknowledgement, the hallelujah, the praise, the worship, the glory. Yes, for touching me with the gift of life this morning. And he woke me up just the way I am. I could not find my regular glasses. And guess what? I found these in the drawer and they work. And I left my dentures in the car, so I had to go downstairs and get my dentures out the car. The beautiful thing about being free from recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. The key for me is being transparent and authentic. That's right. So, welcome to the Free to Hope. Excuse me. Ooh, let me take a drink of coffee. Clear my throat, right? Now, welcome to the Free to Hope conversation with Edwina B. That's me, y'all. And y'all can see why they call me, I even call myself Miss Cuckoo for Cocoa Pops because of my authenticity and transparency. There's nothing like being me. I love it. I love it. My mom used to say, I'm so glad I only had one of you, Edwina. She didn't know that I was the chosen one out of her 6 kids for a special assignment. And that assignment was to take care of her. Yes, I was the prodigal child. I was the black sheep of the family. But you know what? On February the 22nd of 1990, my God met me underneath a parked car at 3 o'clock in the morning after getting high and doing all kinds of sexual favors for my own stepson. At the age of 34, I was a prostitute. I was an alcoholic. I was a crackhead. I was a liar, a thief, a manipulator, all of that. Yes, my knee bowing experience happened on that early morning, February the 22nd of 1990. Yes, and so even though I was deemed the smartest of my mom's 6 kids, I was the co-captain of the cheerleader team. I was the vice president of my class. I was voted the one of the ones to most likely succeed. Yes. So how did I wind up underneath a parked car at the age of 34 under those conditions? Yes. But let me tell you one thing about hitting bottom, or if you will, my knee bowing experience. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And the teacher appeared underneath that parked car, and I didn't really know who she was. All I knew was I cried out, take me out this life or show me a better way, whoever they say you are, and voila. So I must share with you, right, the whole idea. Let me put this on. Why I say free to hope. From recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others. Whatever we as human beings go through on this journey called life, we are challenged with going through some things that are going to challenge us to some things, situations, circumstances, people. And through that process, we are going to find out where we are broken and broke. If you are so tired of being broken and broke, then my spiritual tools that I've learned along the way will help you like they helped me to be set free from recovery, emerge empowered. All right. And so the other thing that I definitely want you to do, because I have a special today. The Spirit laid on my heart how pictures can say 1,000 words, more so than words can say. but it also depends on who's viewing the picture, who's analyzing the picture, and from what perspective that person is viewing that picture. All right. So I have some family dynamics, some family pictures that I want to share with you that I have found out how my brokenness and being broke was perpetuated by my parents in one shape, form, or fashion. And also how their brokenness and being broke was perpetuated by their parents, and so forth and so on. Okay. And so, what I need you to do now is I need you to register, right, for the Free to Hope event, right, that's going to occur on April the 27th. And I did find a way to invite people virtually and attend by Zoom, but that's coming up. And so, let me first share with you this picture so that you can see, if you haven't already, what I'm talking about. All right. So this is the picture, the flyer that I want you to see and find so that you can uh, register on the QR code. And so it is free to individuals, right? But if you are a service providing agency like Ebony Madry Patchwork and Levante Dorsey and Associates, and there are more that I can name that I am expecting to purchase a table for 150 so that they can provide their information on the population that they serve. And so, one of the beautiful things that's going to occur at this event, and I'm going to say beautiful because some wounds are going to be opened, some feelings are going to be triggered, some people may have a meltdown, some people may be set free. In any event, I want someone there who is capable of counseling and providing therapy and providing assistance so that we don't leave that person naked spiritually. Okay. And so, if you want to sponsor my event, and this is a new addition because someone said, Edwina, how can I sponsor you? I said, well, you can purchase 1,000 of my books so that I can give them away. You can sponsor me by making a donation where I can support local agencies who provide mental illness services and substance abuse services, transitional housing services. So I can use you as a sponsor, as a service provider, but I want to help you, the person who needs to get this information for free. I received it freely and I want to give it to you freely. All right. So y'all stay tuned. So I need to get to the topic today. But before I do that, I want to share with you the reading for today. Now, many of you know that I always share my daily reflection reading, right? So I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put this up. The daily reflection. Oh, this is not it. This is not it. This is not it. Okay. So this is not it. So what do I want to do? I'm going to come out of it. And what I'm going to do is, paraphrase. So let me get out of that because that's not the right one. Well, you know what? This Holy Spirit said, nah, you can still use it. Okay. So let me do that. Let me still use it. All right. And even though this was yesterday, it is relevant to what we're going to talk about today. It says an inside look. We want to find exactly how, when, and where our natural desires have warped us. We wish to look squarely at the unhappiness this has caused others and ourselves. By discovering what our emotional deformities are, we can move toward their correction. Then the person in recovery writes, today I am no longer a slave to alcohol, yet in so many ways enslavement still threatens myself, my desires, even my dreams. Yet without dreams, I cannot exist. Without dreams, there is nothing to keep me moving forward. I must look inside myself to free myself. I must call upon God's power to face the person I feared the most, the true me, the person God created me to be. Unless I can or until I do, I will always be running and never be truly free. I ask God daily to show me such a woo, show me the way. All right, so I'm going to get right into it, okay? So on the screen. All right, so before I do that, but okay. Oh my God. If I cry, y'all, these are tears of joy. I'm just letting you know right now, okay? If I cry, it's okay. Because I believe in letting the tears flow. All right. I've been doing work on me through these spiritual tools and resources over the years, right? And through the AA Alcoholics Anonymous program, where it's a spiritual fellowship, spiritual principles, right? And then I was able to learn that the 12 spiritual principles came from the Bible. And I learned more about the Bible now that I'm getting my doctorate degree in biblical studies, right? I also was introduced to a church of my own from Canaan Baptist Church. The Holy Spirit led me to Canaan Baptist Church, where my pastor, Christopher Allen Bullock, and Debbie Bullock. Oh, I love my first family. And then I was introduced to the Five Agreements by the Uwees family. And then I was introduced to spiritual songs on the Spiritual Revival Hour by Dr. Benjamin Twinby Brown, the late Dr. Benjamin Twinby Brown. And then I was introduced to Dr. Sonia. So these are some of the spiritual resources and tools I want to share with you on April the 28th, okay? So because on February the 22nd of 1990, I've been in recovery from co-occurring disorders of mental illness and substance abuse for 34 years, one day at a time. So I've done some work on myself. I've looked inside myself. I am still looking inside myself because I want to continue to be set free. When I came into recovery, my life was like a rotten, spoiled onion full of layers and layers of stuff, right? But through that knee-bound experience, when I hollered out to a God that I didn't know, he said, I got you, and now I'm going to put you on a spiritual path. Now that the spiritual student is ready, I will share with you the spiritual teachers, okay? So I know what it's like to look inside myself, and I found out a whole lot of things that there was nothing wrong with me, but there was plenty that happened to me. Okay, so when I did my 4-step inventory, I had to go back to my family dynamics. I had to go back to the first group that I belonged to, which was my family, my mother, my father, my siblings, and extended family. Okay. So now I just want to share with you just from one generation to the next, right? I'll share with my generation to the next generation, but right now I'm going to share with you my perspective from my parents, brokenness and being broke, and how it perpetuated to me and my siblings as well. Okay. So if I cry, they're tears of joy because I've been set free. All right. All right. So, the first thing that I need to share with you, right, is about my dad. Okay. My dad, I worship the ground he walked on, and he was the light of my life for many, 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 many years. And he had and still has, in one form or another, a very powerful impact on my humanness and my spiritual development. So it's not about me right now, it's about my dad. And I want to share with you, from my perspective, my dad's brokenness and being broke. Okay. And so look at the very first thing, right? I'm just going to share it. It says, he was given away as a child. I'll come back and elaborate on that. He was raised by a prominent family. He found out who his sister was first. He later found out who his mother was. He was a teenage parent. He joined the army at 16 because he lied. He was 17. He was a parent of 6 at the age of 24. He rebelled against women. Wow. All right. So let's start there. My dad, brokenness and being broke, from my perspective, I learned that my father was given away. Yes, he was given away. All right. And so I may spend the rest of the week on this because I really, really, really want to hone in on the perpetuation of brokenness and being broke as it relates to the family dynamics. Okay. And so when I say that my dad was given away, all right, my grandmother, Elizabeth Kemp, that's her real name. Well, that's her name, Elizabeth Kemp, was never married, and she had 4 children. One by Alfonso, uh, one by her oldest one, Aunt Elsie, was the first father. I forget his name. And then my dad and my aunt has the same father named Phillips. And then there is Uncle Bernard, right? They're all deceased, right? So okay, I'll be speaking in terms of past tense and what I learned from them about them from my perspective. Okay, so let me hone in on the first one. My father was given away as a child. And one of the things that I've learned about being broken and broke, we do have to go back into our history to find out what happened, okay? And so I found out that my grandma Kemp was a young mother, and she was uh, a woman that, from what I understand, had low self esteem. She was not cared for appropriately. I don't know the extent of her family just by some hearsay or whatever. And so when my father was conceived by my grandmother, Grandma Kemp, she had already had an Elsie, and she had her young. And so my dad uh, was born the third child. And so my grandmother, was trying to make ends meet, and she got pregnant again by another man. And my aunt Margaret was born. This is the young lady that's in this picture right here. Okay. And 2 years later, by the same father, my dad was born. And so at that time, my grandmother Kemp was struggling, and she had rented a room from a prominent family in the community by the name of the Halls. That's where I get my name from, Edwina Clinton Hall, right? And so because my grandmother Kemp rented a room, right? She was pregnant with my father, and she had 2 daughters. Okay, and so one of the things that I found out was the Hall family did not have any children for whatever reason, and so one of the um, rumors was that Mr. Hall was my father's father. Yeah. And Mrs. Hall assumed that that was his child too. Okay. Somewhere along the line, an arrangement was made by Mr. Hall and my grandmother Kemp that when the baby was born, if it was a boy, that my grandmother would give it to him. Okay. And so that's what happened. Now, from what I understand, by my father being given to the Hall family while my grandmother and her two daughters lived in their house in this room, that when it was time for the baby to be born and given to the Halls, the agreement was my grandmother Kemp and her two daughters, my aunts, would move out. All right. So let me put a hook right there. Okay. Now, we know when it comes to brokenness and being broke, there are many secrets. There are many arrangements, particularly down south, particularly, in close knit communities. There's these secrets. These arrangements have been made and are being made, probably even till today, right? And so here is an innocent child, right? An innocent child conceived conceived by two individuals. And I've learned from my spiritual development and spiritual wisdom and spiritual resources and tools that it is our creator who picks our parents, right? And so the interaction that happens, they created the body, so to speak. But I've learned through my spiritual tools and resources that God identifies the spirit within that body. All right. So when I think about the circumstances and trying to understand, then to be understood about my dad's brokenness and being broke, I have to evaluate the situation in which he was brought up in. So you have his mother, my grandmother, who makes arrangements to give him away to this prominent family who was childless. Okay. On the one hand, I could only imagine what my grandmother felt in having to give up one of her children because of situations and circumstances and poverty. And, I don't know all the details, but could you imagine having to make a decision to give up your child, your first son, right? Because of the circumstances and whatnot, right? Could you imagine what my grandmother felt? I don't know exactly, but I can only imagine. All right. So on the one hand, you have a mother who has to, give her child away. So that's one set of emotions by that person, and that's one set of brokenness and being broke, right? So when I think about the Halls, who had their own brokenness and being broke to some extent because they were unable to have children. All right. So that in itself created some brokenness and being broke with them. And so one of the solutions or one of the alternatives, or in their case, Mr. Hall's case, maybe one of the miracles, right? But in Mrs. Hall's case, it wasn't no miracle, right? Because her brokenness told her something else about this child, my dad. So could you imagine what it was like for the couple to, within their own relationship, have brokenness and being broke because of the acceptance of this child by Mr. Hall and the forced acceptance by Mrs. Hall. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so here I could only imagine what that was like for my dad. Now, according to my father, I was able to ask years later, like, Dad, what happened to you? What happened to you, Dad? Because I needed to understand why my father had hatred against women, why my father was so abusive against women, why my father was always replacing my mother with other women, why my father instilled fear in women, why my father, was like he was the King Kong of women. And being raised by him, and I'll get into that later, but I'm talking about my dad and his brokenness and being broke. So I found out some things about my dad because I wanted to understand what happened to my dad, what caused his brokenness and being broke. Okay. And so my dad shared with me that he grew up believing that the Halls were his parents. No documents, no court, no legalities, nothing that. You know what I mean? So he was raised believing that the Halls were his parents. He was the only child. So he grew up in an environment where he, from his perspective, in confusion. His dad, Mr. Hall, was always acknowledging and praising and showing him off and proud to have a son, right? Right? Now, my grandmother, Kemp, I believed, named him Edward. Okay? Yes, she named him Edward. And during the time that when he was born, it went from Edward Kemp to Edward Hall because he had to, or he was given the name of the family. And so right then and right there, the brokenness and being broke, right? But he was unaware. And so when my dad said his Mr. Hall, was so proud to have him as a son and groomed him and shaped him in some unhealthy ways, in some positive ways, in some negative ways, whatever. And he said, on the other hand, he couldn't understand why his mother, Mrs. Hall, was so mean to him, was nasty to him, was rude to him, demonstrated that she didn't want him or like him. Could you imagine the brokenness in being broke in a family dynamics where one parent worships the ground you walk on and the other parents despise you worse than an animal? I'm just paraphrasing, right? And so being brought up in that household with the parents' brokenness and being broke, that is now being perpetuated to my father in this family. Okay? So I'm going to hone in this whole week on my family, my parents in particular, to share with you the importance of coming to this event on April the 27th. Okay. So let me put it up again here, y'all. Okay. Let me put it up again. Right. Okay. I want you to really hone in on registering for this event. Okay. Because of the magnitude of our brokenness and being broke and where it really all began. And some people will say it began with what? Adam and Eve, So, okay. But I can only focus on me and my immediate family, my parents and my siblings, and then I'll go into the extended family, my community and society, okay? So that's why coming to this event on April the 27th, I want to be able to plant a seed and ask you, are you so tired of being broken and broke? But the main question is, if I am so tired of being broken and broke, where did it all start? And we all have to start with ourselves. And when we utilize spiritual principles to unravel the mystery of how we became broken and broke, then we'll have the ability to utilize those same tools to find out more about our family dynamics. Okay? So it's time for me to go to my AA 12-step meeting. And if it's God's will that we are joined tomorrow, then I will rise, you will rise, and we will meet again. But for today, because he chose you to rise and chose me to rise, he wants us to be of service to one of his children. Can you be of service today? Can you hug someone today? Can you forgive someone today? Can you tell someone today you love them? Can you just love somebody unconditionally for a minute? In other words, can you do for another human being as our God has done for us? But let me end by saying, I love you. You love me. We are one big family with a great big hug and a kiss from me to you. Won't you say you love me too? Edwina B, free to hope. From recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others. Help others prosper equally. I love you. See you tomorrow if it's God's will. Oh, Lord.